Can I have your name and number?
My phone number is 207-707-7329. I'm not going to give you my name because it's private and copywritten, and I'm not really sure what you're going to do with the information. But I have a question, and I did call yesterday, and I think I'm going to call every single day. The reason why I call is because we elect these individuals, such as representatives, that claim to be working for us, the American people, on our behalf. And we as the American people, from the Declaration of Independence, it basically says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, by their creator, by God. And we're not bound by institutions created by men unless through consent, essentially. And more of a paraphrase. In the accurate terminology, it would say, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Following, it says, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So, I'm a non-citizen national from the land and soil jurisdiction, a part of the actual national government of the nation states in the original founding of America from 1776 onward. And what I'm noticing is that we, during all these election times, these individuals, and they are individuals, claim that they are working on our behalf for the American people. But then when you choose not to consent, because also in the 13th Amendment it says, slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be prohibited unless for a crime. So it seems to be what they've done is turn all our rights into crimes. And then claim, so it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime, whereof shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or the states or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So it's saying that we can volunteer to be slaves if we wanted to. So when I have my own private property and I choose not to register it over to the state because that's basically giving them now jurisdiction and ownership over that automobile, then slapping their decal, their license plate on it that they created, thus making my private property their property now. And if we don't do what they want us to do, they beat us up, they kill us, they steal our property, and then they force us through coercion to follow these protocols. I have a grandmother that was born in 1938, and she didn't have to register her vehicle till around the late 70s is when they started to force this on the American people, or at least say that this is a compliance. And I'm sure this idea was sold as the benefit to the American people, which has now caused a slavery. And because the majority have been conditioned and indoctrinated to follow through with these protocols, now if you choose as an American not to follow, these so-called principles, well, then the boys in blue come and then they beat you up and they say that they swore an oath to protect and serve the Constitution. But how so? So the question is how did these people represent us? Do they work for us or do we work for them? Do they work for a foreign agency interest? Is there a secret constitution that we're unaware of? Do they really serve the American people or higher interests like bankers, maybe the shadow government? Maybe there's another nation that they swore their allegiance to outside of America that has nothing to do with the American people at all. Because the moment Americans stand on their rights, they get beaten down. And this is happening across the entire country right now. And because of COVID-19 and its unconstitutional implications, people have chose to not participate anymore. They lost their jobs because they didn't want to take the vaccine. That was being forced upon them. And then other people did. Why? Because they wanted money. So their God is money. But what if you don't believe in that God? What if you choose freedom and then we have a tyrannical system that's going against the American people? So how can we as the American people affect positive change in our elected governments that recognize our rights over their foreign policy that turn us all into slaves and through crime. That we had rights, but due to ex post facto laws and bills of attainder and bills of pain and penalties and some kind of implication of an assumption or tacit agreement or non-assumption or acquiescence or implied consent or implied voluntary compliance, if we don't, we get threatened with our life. So how does the American government or the United States government represent the American people anymore? Who is on our side? Why is all hope now becoming lost in this free country? Does the government work for the people or do we work for them? Does the government work and serve the people? Because whenever you ask a police officer, why are you beating us up? Or you ask them, why are you doing this to me? They say, I'm just doing my job. So they're doing their job from who? Who's their commander-in-chief? They go by lieutenant, sergeant, deputy. How are those not terms affiliated with the military on our soil that is going against the American people and eroding our constitutional liberties? They're claiming that policy, ordinances, and everything that falls under the color of law supersedes the actual law, which is the Constitution and the treaties they made thereof. How come under Florida Statute 2.01 enforces and invokes the common law? But if you talk about that to these officers or judges, they override you and railroad you. And you can even ask them, are you a public servant? So you're the trustee. They don't recognize you anymore. They don't care about you. We have elections coming up. So is the government at war with the American people and our freedom? Are they using the Constitution to give them permission to usurp our rights, to give them rights, while eliminating our rights and converting them into privileges? And what can you do with the privilege that you can't do with the right? You can take it away. You can alter it. You can reform it. You can tax it. Are we that far? I have proof that the debt from the United States government borrowed by the Federal Reserve is not implicated on the American people. But the only way that they're paying through this debt is through property tax, registration, converting every single right into a crime. Thus, they're turning us into debt chattel. They're turning us into the ones that have to pay for the debt when it really is obligated to the American or the United States government. I apologize. So the United States government is the one that's obligated to pay back these debts, not the American people. But they're using our babies, stealing our names, creating forgery out of our live birth records to create a birth certificate and a social security number that then makes us property of the United States. And we're a thing. We're under res in the Black's Law Dictionary is a thing. So they're saying that we're res, which is a thing, identified, a resident, an indentured slave. And under 26 USC, under the tax code, they're basically saying that all U.S. citizens are things that are taxable items. So I've woke up to the fraud. I do not consent to the fraud, but if I stand up for myself, I get a gun put in my face, they steal my property, they throw me in jail, then I go face a judge that obviously doesn't represent the American people. They swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, and then they somehow override that as though I, actually committed a crime. There's multiple different jurisdictions. You have criminal jurisdiction and then civil and equitable jurisdiction. Well, when civil comes about, I demanded to see the contract through my recent court date. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I had another friend, a part of the assembly, get pulled over because they had private tags on their private automobile, and then they arrested this individual, beat him up, threw him in jail, towed the vehicle away. And now they got to go to court to fight this stuff when I know damn well the system that's designed to protect us is absolutely against us. It does not care about us. It hates us. I'm really under the impression that DeSantis, Trump, Biden, both parties, the religion of Babylon, is against the American people. And I would like to have a representative that we voted for that cares about the Constitution, cares about the rule of law, and would like to ease my mind and my soul about this because I have a daughter. And when I had a daughter in 2011, that's what started this. This is what made me think about the future of my country. And I've been watching our country go down to the toilet since the Obama administration, since Bush, the war on terror. And we had more freedom in 9/11 than we do now. Now we're heading down. We are no different than a socialistic fascist government because they control our speech. They censor the truth. They're going after every single right that we possibly have. So again, it begs the question, does the American government represent the American people and its interest? Are they working for us, or are we their slave that if we don't comply, we get thrown into a concentration camp? Will the U.S. government execute American people that stand for constitutional liberties and fundamentalism? Is that where we're going as a nation? As we move forward in the ever-evolving now, in 2024, July 3rd, of the day that is no longer the day of independence. We know there's no such thing as Independence Day anymore. Because there isn't individual liberty anymore. There isn't individual rights. So how can you have independence? How can you stand independently? You can't. So we're moving into some scary times now. And we vote for this guy named DeSantis. I've never had anybody call me back. I've never had anybody answer my questions. So how do I know that you even care? How do I know? I'm one of the people of the several states. I went through the pertinent actual process to get those documents on paper and in writing that seem to be ignored by also your administrative judges that are a part of the special maritime jurisdiction under 18, Part 1, Chapter 1, Statute 7. And within 7, 8, and 9 excludes nationals, but they don't recognize that. I believe it's Section 23 or 22, I can't recall exactly specifically, but under the Florida Constitution, or the Declaration of Rights within the Florida Constitution, it talks about due process of law and how we have a right to have a fair hearing and all these things. That's not what I got. I got railroaded. I brought up the color of law and all those things. That judge did not care. Now I have to appeal the case, but what about the other individuals? And I have to call back and contact the assembly and say, what's the point? Why own anything? Why ever get a driver's license? Why vote? Why participate in this government anymore? Why, might as well just go out in the woods and put a bullet in our head, because that's gonna get ahead of the government. That way we don't. I mean, you wanted to vaccinate us, which is causing blood clots and heart attacks and everything else. And if we didn't, then we got excluded. I mean, they literally said essential workers and non-essential workers. What a way to inflate the ego. So they've already divided the nation. We didn't have to be divided. The government divided us already. They said that there's essential workers and non-essential workers. So there was a population that was afraid of what was going to happen, but they got deemed essential workers. And then there was non-essential workers, which I fall into the category of a non-essential, okay? But then it came down to mask mandates and vaccines. And if you did not contribute or comply, then you lost your job. You couldn't have an identification device to go to concerts. You couldn't be a part of restaurants and all that stuff. And when the government realized that they were doing all this stuff, they destroyed this country. They destroyed it. And now, as we move forward in this new world order, post-COVID, now, if we stand up for our rights, we get guns put in our face. We're told that we have to comply. I was born in 1983. I was raised by veterans. I was raised by people that fought hard for this country, real Americans. And as time has progressed into 2005, 2010, 2011, okay, going into now 2024, we have eroded and lost what it means to be American people. And I'm standing the best I can on my rights. And because these court systems that are supposed to work for us and are not, they seem to be working for foreign interests. We want to unplug from the system because that was our birthright. Be a national, recognize exactly who we are, use your language of your law to then hold you accountable, not us. That's not obligated to us. The Constitution was an instruction manual for the government. Well, now they don't even follow our rights. Yeah, they got the First Amendment and all these auditors out there, and they get babysat everywhere they go, but we have more rights than just the First Amendment. In the First Amendment, it says the freedom of religion. Well, religion implicates that there's a separation of church and state. Well, I said that to the police while I was getting arrested, and they didn't want to recognize that. So when I got in the court of law, well, everything I said got interrupted and railroaded. So then it begs the question, do these public servants work for us or do we work for them? What if we don't comply? Are we going to end up dead? I'm going to call every single day with these same questions until I get an answer. Because to me, I mean, I stand up, I may just be one guy and one voice, and I'm not paranoid. If I have to die for my freedom and the truth, I will gladly take the bullet, but let me be an example of what is actually going to be implicated upon your children, your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. This is what the future of America holds. This great nation of freedom. That people that recognize what real freedom is and do not want to sign over their automobile, their private property, over to a state to be a part of the security interest or the Security Exchange Commission attached to the debt from the Federal Reserve banks that have nothing to do with us. We're not owned by anybody. But as soon as we stand up and we say that, they call it, you're a sovereign citizen. So you can hack your penis off and call yourself a girl, and that's okay. You got civil rights backing that, you up, but you want to call yourself a national, oh, you're a sovereign citizen. Look at this guy. I feel like the days of Jesus, when they mocked Jesus and they mocked the disciples. They mocked Noah, as in the days of Noah. So here we are, we're exercising real freedom, and we get mocked, laughed at, torn down because of our nationality. And then when you bring that up in the court of law, they mock you too. Good luck finding a civil rights attorney that's going to hear this case. They don't give a shit about us because they all are in it together. You want to be a lawyer, you got to swear an oath to the bar association. You're an officer of the court. You get one of them, that means that you're incompetent. They turn you over to the state. They don't work for us. They don't give a shit about us. So what makes me think that DeSantis gives a shit about us? And I don't speak for myself. I speak for every American out there that doesn't have a vocabulary to be able to defend themselves properly, to be able to announce their grievances. I would write a letter, but man, how do I know that that's not going to fall on deaf ears? Prove to me that the American government works for the people anymore, and that you're not encroaching on our freedoms, and that anybody like me will not end up in a concentration camp with a bullet in my head. Is that what truth amounts to these days? We vote for these people. Why? Why do we vote for these people? Why should we participate in the religion of Babylon? My grandmothers, my...
So I'll get your message to the governor, but honestly, I'm not equipped to answer your questions.
No one is.
But I will let him know that you are looking for a response.
I am, and I will call tomorrow at the same time.
Yes, sir.
God bless you, and happy non-Independence Day and the hypocritical stance of our government. I don't know why you work for these Satanists and these evil people. God bless you, and have a nice day.